this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, folks.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Happy Good Friday, folks.
You're right. Good Friday. Dang, I missed my opportunity.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Fistful, Good Friday, Friday.
Hey, Xana, ho, Xana, hey, Xana, hey, JC. Jesus Christ
This is
Superstar.
the day the Lord has made.
Let us rejoice in it.
Be glad in it.
TGIF MFers.
Yay!
TGIGF. Thank God it's Good Friday. Yeah,
That,
TGIGF.
Jesus did not say that. He was like, son of a bitch. It's Good Friday. And then he was like,
That was it?
oh, they're going to take my Catholic card back.
No. Well, in honor of the resurrection on Easter, because it's Easter Sunday.
My God, why have you abandoned me?
We have our Fistful of Resurrections in honor of Easter. Brian, you look so antsy and ready to go. Can I get through the intro first? You want to say your number 5 so bad.
I'm nervous because I don't think
He's
it's...
gearing up an apology.
I'm trying to psych him up into it. That's what I'm doing. You're so excited. You're ready to go, right?
Sure.
What's your number 5?
Okay, so I had to massage this list a little bit.
No, you don't have to preface anything. Just give it to them. They're gonna be like, what the fuck?
So resurrections. So, resurrections are people who have died and came back. So, people can also fake their death.
That's right.
And come back as well. Or sometimes they can just be in like an extended sleep mode, like Vanilla Sky.
God damn it!
I don't think he technically comes back. I think if that movie ended with him like popping it open and it's like, I'm just going to live with my melt face, like I think that would be a resurrection. But I think in Vanilla Sky, he like decides to like stay in the dream thing, right?
All right.
Well, he wakes up at the end.
No,
he decides. That's why he jumps off the... Spoiler alert. This movie's almost 20 years old.
But does he pop out and is like... Does him jumping off that building means... Like,
he's going to wake up.
He's going to wake up?
He's going to wake up.
Oh,
that's why the very last shot is the eyeball opening. You hear someone saying,
oh,
David, open your eyes.
Sorry, I can't believe... And that was a really wonderful episode of In My Homework.
Yeah. So...
Back.
Did I take?
That counts.
Yeah,
That
motherfucker.
counts.
I did. Okay, so if Darren had it, then I feel better. I'm sorry for taking it, but I feel better that you had it on your list. So yeah, I guess you could say he was resurrected, and an extent. What was it, Ellie?
I'm not telling you anything. You shouldn't have it as your pick if you don't know what it is.
Dude, I've seen this movie. Well, maybe not as much as you
Please
have.
don't say that.
But life extension. So yeah, he was in a dream state. And of course we all talk about the moment on the top of the roof with
Brian, why did you even pick this?
No, I'm just
spike me?
No.
With tech support?
No, what's the lady, the girl?
Penelope.
And you don't know her name?
Penelope Cruz.
Oh, you're killing me.
I was thinking Penelope Cruz. Yeah,
She's my dream girl.
Is she?
How's
she
her
really?
brows?
She was.
She has good brows.
She has solid brows.
Yeah, I think she does. She has good brows. Yeah, but this is, I forget how many years later, because, that moment that he has with her, where he's like, it's like, you're dead and I'm asleep. And, it's like, I have to make this choice to just I could stay in this dream state, or I could decide to live a real life. And he makes that the choice to live a real life, where he could have stayed in that dream state and lived with her, but it wouldn't have been real. And I don't know, like, just thinking about it is just kind of profound, just in general.
How do we know this is real, though?
You're right. You're absolutely right, Lisa. We don't. This could
This could be a dream state.
It could absolutely be.
I could be the only person who exists.
Wow.
Or I could be just a figment of your imagination. In some certain degree, I'm a figment of your imagination.
You know what? Wow. That's getting heavy. That's getting heavy.
That would mean you would have to be here imagining Brian at his place when he's having his kidney stones. Because why would he have any knowledge of that?
No, like, why
would that be real to him?
While he's having his kidney stones, the dream me still exists. Even though as he's peeing fire, there is a piece of me in his imagination. Like now that I exist to you, even when you're not thinking of me, part of you is thinking of me.
No, but what I'm saying, if we're in your dream, you said, what if this is all your dream? Like, what if we're not really here? It's just you.
Oh, that would
mean like his kidney stone. You have to be you're responsible for that then.
No. Well, yes, but also his kidney stones are just a story that he's telling me.
But it's also but that's also my reality. So it wouldn't be
within her dream.
No, but I'm still living my reality
in her dream. Because she said, what if this is all her dream and she's the only one here? What if we're not real? That means you're in her dream. That means she's dreaming of you having a kidney stone.
But are you really having a kidney stone, or are you telling me a story about a kidney stone you thought you had?
But is her dream giving me consciousness? Almost like the Kurt Russell character. I'm real.
My kidney stones were real. It felt real.
That sounds like the kind of thing a figment of my imagination that pretended to have kidney stones would say.
Oh man!
All right.
Well, yeah, because my brain hurts now. But Vanilla Sky, that's my number 5.
Well, thank you for taking this that deep with your number 5. I kind of asked for it. I'm sorry. I apologize, listeners. Lisa.
Yes.
Hopefully your number 5 is more shallow. What is your number 5 pick?
My number 5 is actually a tie between two resurrections that you can see in the theaters right now.
Oh.
So one is, I think her first name is Veronica Nimue, like the Mila Jovovich character in Hellboy.
Yeah, it's either Veronica or Vivian.
Vivian, like she has like some kind of like total like
Nimue is her last name.
Like female CEO power first name, which is completely unnecessary. I don't think Nimue of Arthurian legend was just like, oh, I'm Ms. Nimue. If you're nasty. I don't know. It was very... But, yeah, so she is resurrected in the film from her disparate parts via tree blood and weird stuff. And then Ellie from Pet Sematary, played by Jette Lawrence, also resurrected via some kind of rock voodoo.
Yeah. Some mystical cemetery, I guess it is.
Well, it's the cemetery, if I'm not mistaken, is on hallowed ground.
Okay.
But the ground became hallowed because of the magic that it because apparently the Native Americans had a certain reverence for this land, and that's why there were all of those interesting rock formations and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Turns out it's a bad idea. Judd's motivation is completely baffling to me. He's just like, you really love this cat, right? Because you got to really love this cat. Yeah, I love my cat. Let's bury it. Let's bury it over there. Like, Judd, you know.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. His excuse is like, I just really, once
I didn't think it was going to come back
once
like
you
that.
see it one time, you just there's something about it where you just got to do it again. I don't know. Oh, Judd. You just want attention. That's what all old people want.
But I do love John Lithgow.
That's true.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
John Lithgow was the best thing in that movie.
Yeah.
The second best thing, because the cat was adorable.
Meow.
Yeah.
All right.
That was some
picks.
great cat acting.
It was by all cats involved.
By all 4 cats.
Yes. My number 5. This is because Brad isn't here. I feel like I'm obligated to have this in representation of him. I'm going to go with Leonard Nimoy's Spock.
Yes.
From Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Because, spoiler alert, who listening doesn't even know that Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan has probably the absolutely saddest and most heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching scene in the film franchise, or in any film franchise for that matter. When we lose Spock, Dr. Spock, as he makes a self-sacrifice to save the rest of the crew and everyone else.
He's like the Christ figure of the crew.
He is. Yeah. And at the end of that film, part of his funeral ceremony is to have him shot out into space, not into space, but actually on the planet.
Well, he's in space for a second, but then he leaves space
and goes to the planet,
Genesis planet,
where he will be reborn, and they would have to search for him, thus requiring a sequel, part 3, to search for Spock. Even, it's funny. Even knowing that third film exists, when you go back and you watch Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and you watch the end, it still is no less heartbreaking. At the very least for me, it's still a very touching moment. And, just the performances from both Shatner and Leonard Nimoy in that scene. Because for me, and I can't speak for everyone else, but I take into that scene with me. I take into account the history between those characters, not even just the films, but also like the television series and all those adventures and those journeys and those life and death situations that they've been on, and all the conversations that they've had outside of those life and death situations, just regular conversations that those two characters have. And the bond that they share, and, understanding what it's like to have a connection with someone on your crew, and I'm speaking like in a military sense, but also just friendship-wise, someone who you have a friendship that spans that amount of time. And for that friendship to end in that way, the way that it was shot, like the score, the acting, it's still a very profound scene. Even knowing that he's going to come back to life afterwards, it still doesn't take away from the power of that moment in that film. So yeah, I'd be remiss if I did not have that on my list that rhymed, in honor and representation of my brother, the Mouth Dork. So that's going to be my number 5. Brian, your number 4.
So I was going to go down my list, but
You want to go up?
No, go up. Elevator go up. Elevator go down the hole. You'll probably have this on your list. But
damn it, Brian!
I'm still going to use it because all I got is 5. So I can say I don't care if other people. I'm not. I know you don't. We don't have time for that. It's Game of Thrones night. Anyway, but I'm gonna go with the Fake Your Death because I'm gonna save the actual resurrections for the top of my list. So this is from the MCU. This is a character that died and came back. This is from Winter Soldier. This is one Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, when he gets shot in Captain America, Steve Rogers' apartment, and we all thought he was dead? No, we didn't. Maybe people who aren't familiar with comics and the MCU and Marvel probably thought, "Oh man, that's the end of Sam Jackson."
You know what? You just gave me a good idea for my. I'm gonna do auto, but go ahead, Brian.
It's like, man,
you gave me a great idea.
Yeah, Nick Fury had a hell of a run, but oh well, he made it this far. At least he made it to phase 2. But
maybe he got the idea from Steve Rogers. Was that your idea?
Nope.
Maybe he got the idea from Bucky Barnes. Did you think that was the one you were doing?
It's going to be a point of contention. I will just tell you that.
Is it going to be Endgame and it's going to be all of the characters who were tested?
You better say it before I
do. But we don't know that.
Brian, finish your number 4.
So Nick Fury. So of course, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Winter Soldier, is one of the best Marvel movies. But Nick Fury does come back. If you haven't seen any of the other Marvel films preceding Winter Soldier, but he comes back. But I would say it's a resurrection because even though Nick Fury is alive, he has a gravestone. Because at the end of the movie, they're standing at his gravestone. So I didn't even think about that. Nick Fury has a gravestone.
Do you think they pull that shit up, or they're like, just leave it, he's gonna die anyway?
That's a good question. Maybe they did. Maybe they just said, "Oh, he's still alive, but we'll just save it."
If somebody accidentally made me a gravestone, I'm like, well, I'm bringing that home with me.
Who accidentally makes you a gravestone?
They're like,
who
we
are these people?
haven't seen Lisa, like it's fall. She stopped watching Gilmore Girls. Like she's in the middle of season 4. Like she's gotta be dead. Like that's how they would check. That would be as far as they would go. They're like, oh man, she hasn't even logged into Netflix in like weeks and she has not finished Gilmore Girls. And then they're like, okay, well, let's throw a party.
That's the telltale sign if the Gilmore Girls hasn't
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, everybody would watch it in remembrance of me. They would, like, finish it for me. And then somebody would be like, I'm Team Jess. And then I'll rise from the grave. Team Logan forever.
So no one calls and checks with Brad. Hey, Brad, how's your wife doing? No one. What?
He'll never pick up because he's at the movies.
Oh yeah, that makes sense though. Okay, all right.
My car is found on the side of the road on fire. We're like,
Jesus.
That's how she said she was gonna go.
What? God damn it, Lisa!
They just immediately start chiseling.
Stop! What's your number 4?
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Happy Death Day to You, the mom.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is, resurrection gray area because the mom is technically from a parallel universe. Yeah. But to Tree, she, like, her mom died and bouncing from universe to universe and finding one where her mother was alive and having to make that choice of, like, going
Hell, Tree is a perfect candidate. She's resurrected multiple times throughout the fucking film.
Didn't even occur to me, weirdly. But I just found the acting in that particular scene by the woman who played the mother.
Yeah.
Who I don't have her. I don't have her name at my fingertips. But the fact that she could see her, like, early twants daughter just having an emotional time and seeming irrational and being able to turn that into a completely open and loving teaching moment without completely understanding where her daughter came from. Like, that is just some amazing momming in that scene. So beautiful. And then for Tree to come to the realization where it's like, my mom could be here, but I could never be the Tree who did not lose her mom.
Exactly.
So.
Ah, man. Fun fact. That's my favorite movie of the year so far.
Really?
As of April 14th, 2019. Yeah, Happy Death Day to You is my favorite movie.
I was shocked because I waited a long time to see a Happy Death Day.
Me too. I didn't see it until right before.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Same. So you had the same experience to me. And, like, to me, that Happy Death Day, such a fun movie. But I think it's like one of those where on its own, Happy Death Day to You has... it's not a perfect film, but as a pair, just those two movies are just so unique, and they just take this kind of fun idea. I mentioned in my Week in Dork, I watched the Neil Gaiman masterclass, and one of his things that he mentions, like, people ask him all the time, like, where do your ideas come from? And he's like, well, a lot of times my ideas come from convalescence, like the two different ideas coming together. So in the idea of Happy Death Day, that idea of the Groundhog phenomenon, Groundhog Day phenomenon, meeting slasher film, the convalescence of those two ideas created something that I think is really unique, and I'm just so excited that it exists. It's so fun.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, great pick. For my number 4, I was gonna do a preemptive. The resurrection of all of the dusted characters from the MCU. I'm so tempted to, but I'm gonna go. One of the things I think about, and I think a lot of people would think about in regards to films and when resurrection and people returning from the dead would be zombies. Right? And
I was thinking that too. Yeah,
I have to go back to George Romero's 1960-something classic, Night of the Living Dead. I don't remember what year. Please don't flame me online. Just help me and give me that.
Notice that when Brad's not here, like, the fact checking goes, like, way down.
Out the window, yeah. What's a fact?
Don't hold us responsible for numbers and accuracy.
What is a fact?
You guys have phones.
Is that a math thing? But I have to go back to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Since that film, the zombie subgenre in horror has become its own monster, pun intended. And there have been so many different variations of the living dead. Now they've become infected, and they've been given so many different names. We have, television series, long running successful television series to some varying degrees that have birthed multiple spinoffs and different genres, comedies and romance and things like that. And if I had not gotten out of Light of the Living Dead, I would not have been rewatching The Girl with All the Gifts last night, and I'm so grateful for that. And the conceit of that original film and what it was speaking on for its time, its relevancy in our time, the filmmaking that was on display in that film, and how comparable to filmmaking today, we see there's still some connective threads. There are things in that film and techniques and the way that it was shot, and how character is used in the context of a horror film that we still feel and see today in cinema. And I just think that just speaks to a landmark film and cinematic genius and talent and originality, that you can pinpoint where things began, things that we still hold dear and use today and see today and experience today. We can go back and trace it back to a lot of those things to this film. And I don't know. Like I said, I'd be remiss if I did not have that film on my list when talking about Resurrections. And I've been fortunate enough, thanks to the Alamo Drafthouse, they are a godsend, because I've been able to see that film on the big screen, I think twice now. And I'm so grateful for that, because I can't imagine back when that film initially came out, being in the theater and watching that, because you got to remember, that's the first time that the audience have experienced this type of monster, this type of horror. And if it's still effective today, like, I just can't imagine being in that audience and being shocked by what George Romero presented to the world. So yeah, I gotta have that on my list. That's my number 4, Night of the Living Dead. Brian, your number 3.
Okay, here we go. So, I'm sorry, Darren. I have to do it.
You motherfucker.
I have to. I mean,
you already took David Ames, man. Okay, go ahead, because we're sharing. Sharing is caring.
I mean, the movie's not great, but
what movie?
Justice League, Superman.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go. Okay, you can have that. You can have it. Go.
Okay, yeah, I know Superman's your guy.
Yeah, he's my guy. But go. You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. Superman, Justice League. Oh, actually, it might be one of my 2. It might be in my top 2.
I will kill you, Brian. Just go. God damn.
Okay. So, all right. Let's get to Superman. So, we had our review cast, Justice League. We're mediocre at best on that movie.
At best.
At best.
You're being so generous tonight.
I know, right? Movie's not great, but I mean, we all love the character of Superman, and we knew that coming off of Batman v Superman, after the death of Superman, that he was going to be resurrected. And I know there was a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement as far as to how he was going to be resurrected, and that's when we still had hope for Justice League. Then we saw the movie.
Wah, wah.
But outside of just that movie, Justice League, just the idea and the story of the death of Superman and the fact that he was resurrected, I think, it belongs somewhere on this list. And I don't know, it's just really great, especially when you have a character like Superman and when you see all the other heroes who understand the reason why they need to bring a character like Superman back, because he is truth, justice, and what's the American way?
Everyone's way, motherfucker.
Everyone's way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, knowing that this is the reason why they need to bring him back, because of what Superman represents to everyone in the world, especially in the way that you see how the world grieved for his death at the end of Batman v Superman. I just thought that was just brilliantly and poignantly done by Zack Snyder. They kind of squandered that in Justice League, I thought, in my personal opinion. But I don't know, just the idea of the resurrection of Superman, I think, is really profound, and just that whole idea. So that's my number 3. 3 is Superman. Your boy.
Okay.
Your guy.
All right. Lisa, your number 3.
My number 3 is another Messiah, but this Messiah is Neo from The Matrix.
I was thinking the same thing. Did he come back?
Yeah, he totally did. He was like shot several times. He flatlined, and then the skinny pale chick was like,
"Oh, in the first one."
It was the Oracle told me that I would be in love with the chosen one, and I love you. And he's like, what? And then he was like,
okay,
up and around. I'm pantomiming Keanu Reeves.
I was thinking the end of the trilogy, like when he dies at the end of the third one.
I only vaguely remember. So just recently, I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago, The Matrix was our Alamo Ashburn Film Club.
Oh, okay.
And I was so stoked to see this movie again, because when it came out in '99, and the couple of years like watching it and rewatching it on DVD, like I was like, like as a young Christian kid, I'm like, this is a Christian movie.
Yeah.
Neo was like a virgin birth, and look, he falls and he dies, and then he comes back, and there's like disciples, and like Morpheus is like John the Baptist, and I was just like, whoa. And now like watching it as an adult, I was like, it's like any Savior movie, like all of the Saviors, they're all the same
story. Yeah.
But for me, I was just like, see, we do cool stuff too. But yeah, so but I really enjoyed rewatching this movie again, though. Just like after watching Captain Marvel, watching this movie, like I'm just like, 90s music is the worst.
Oh man, yeah, like that
the score
electronica.
Is awful, and it's just so bad. And the fashion, like it's just like neoprene everything.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like do you need that kind of like, I don't, like you're gonna be moving around, like don't you need something that breathes? I don't know.
It's a lot of patent leather, right?
Yeah.
All
It's an
right.
extremely 90s film, but it's nostalgic for me, and it's like that one. It's like Vanilla Sky that gets you talking about like, like what is existence anyway? Like, would you take the red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
like that movie.
Great pick.
Thank you.
My
I'm
number.
killing it this week.
You are. My number 3 was going to be David Ames from Vanilla Sky.
It could still be David Ames.
It could be, but then I would not have room to talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on my Fistful, and any opportunity that I have to talk about that amazing film, I shall. So I'm going to go with the resurrection of Spider-Man, and the idea that in Miles's timeline, he's witnessed in his universe, he's witnessed to the death of Spider-Man at the hands of Kingpin. And so through public perception, Spider-Man is no longer. So the public is left without a Spider-Man. So through Miles's journey of self-discovery and understanding who he is and what he could be and realizing his greatest potential, by the end of the film, he becomes Spider-Man. So to the public, Spider-Man has been resurrected. They now have another Spider-Man. Spider-Man is back. And so that's my resurrection. I just want to talk about that film because it was great. My number 3, Spider-Man, a.k.a. Miles Morales. Brian, you're number 2.
Okay, this might be the one
What?
that you...
Man, God.
I don't know. Because I'm not like you and Brad. Like, I could read like how you guys read each other. So you might have this on your list.
I'm hoping you don't.
The Crow?
Oh, shit. That's a great pick, Brian.
Okay.
Damn. I
five
should have
for
thought of that.
I thought you would. Okay.
Damn.
That wasn't on your list.
No, it was not. A lot of comic book movies coming up on our list.
Yeah. So, The Crow. This is 1994. David Prowse directed. Brandon Lee, unfortunately, who passed away.
Alex.
What'd I say?
David.
David Pro. Alex Pro. Okay. Alex Prowse. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Brad's not here. Fact check.
No.
Damn it. Brandon Lee, unfortunately, who lost his life on the set of this film. But of course, this is the movie about the the guitarist, the metal. Was it like a metal band?
Eric Draven.
Eric Draven.
Yeah.
But what type of band? Was it a metal band?
Yeah, it was a rock band.
Rock band. Yeah. So he gets beaten.
You do a mean air guitar, by the way. It looked stressful, didn't it?
It looks like a ukulele. It's
It's
tight.
gotta be long.
Or maybe he's really shredding in. Yeah. No, you can't.
Y'all can't see me.
move The,
I can't.
neck, because that would snap.
Damn.
No, you're still moving
Oh wait,
the
no,
neck.
but that's how
you
you do
gotta
the.
go in. You gotta go.
The what?
You gotta go in. It sounds like a cat. Are you sure you're not playing a cat?
Oh man,
Is
the
this not
listeners
church
have no
from Pet
idea. I'm trying to air guitar and it's not working. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not Eric Draven. So
I think we should do more pantomime on this podcast. It's audio.
this
podcast.
is why we need video. But the Crow. Yeah, so he's resurrected. His girlfriend is killed, and he comes back from the power or the essence or the whatever it is of the crow.
Magic.
Magic. That's magic. Okay, I didn't think it was magic.
It's not science.
Definitely
not science.
Definitely not science. No. So he comes back from the grave to avenge the death of his girlfriend, and just pretty badass movie, man. Like, this is a movie that I haven't seen it recently, but I remember I was away from this movie for a while when it came out in '94, and I think when I met you and we talked about The Crow a lot around like the early 2000s, and I ended up watching it, and this may have been 10 years after I originally saw it. I was like, man, yeah, this movie was pretty badass, and I ended up picking it up on at that time DVD, and I think I know. Excuse the cough.
That's the idea of DVD, just the lesser.
Yeah, I know.
Just gives them the scratchy throat.
And I rebought it on Blu-ray,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, just the score in the movie is just profound. The performance by Brandon Lee, I mean, it's sad to know what happened to him, because you can just see that. I mean, he was a star that was on the rise with just what he was able to bring to that character, to show the grief and the remorse, and the vengeance that he had, especially when he's getting this revenge and the love that he had for his girlfriend. Ernie Hudson, who, at that time, I just knew him as the side character in Ghostbusters, in Congo.
Jeez.
I like Congo, or at least from what I can remember when I saw it back in '95. But yeah, I thought he was really powerful in that film too. And I don't know, The Crow, I think, is an extremely underrated film, especially a comic book film or just movie in general, that a lot of people don't talk about. I think because it's been kind of maligned with a lot of these subsequent sequels that just don't live up to the original film.
I've never watched any of the sequels. I've not seen one of them.
Yeah.
It's pretty dated. Like
the first one?
Yeah, The Crow, like the original movie. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm just saying it's not like a film that stands the test of time.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the reasons why it took me so long to revisit the movie, is because it felt dated. It wasn't a movie that I felt eager to go back to. But after having conversations about the movie with Darren, and I went back and watched it, I found it to be a really interesting story that I really kind of connected to, just through the performance of Brandon Lee. But yeah, you're right. The movie does feel kind of dated. I do like a lot of the practical sets. It almost has like kind of like that Tim Burton feel to it, with a lot of the practicality that it has to the sets.
Because it uses a lot of miniatures too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my number 2 on The Crow. Yeah, Brandon Lee.
All right, Lisa, you're number 2.
I was just thinking about on our Weekend Dork, I mentioned at the end that we watched that Buster Keaton documentary that's on Amazon Prime right now, and there's like one big time stunt he did where he like went underneath a waterfall, and like it was just like they just spread like heavy water on him, and it's the scene that's in the film, and it's like this iconic thing, but he broke his neck doing that. Like, where you go, like, or like you think about the scene in the latest Mission Impossible movie where you go, like,
where he broke his
ankle. Well, that's the shot where he's running on. He broke his ankle in that shot. How do you feel, or like watching The Crow, where you go, like, he died making this movie, like, that, like, does that? like, what does that knowledge do to us as a viewer? I don't know. It's complicated.
It's interesting because even rewatching the film, and I think wasn't it the shootout scene where that happened, or like where the thing?
Where it's just like it was a blank that was just shot too close.
Yeah,
there was something. Someone didn't check the firearm before putting the blank in there. There was a piece of slug from the previous day's shooting, a piece of blank fragment wedged in the barrel, so they didn't clean it. So when they put the blank in for the next day's shoot, that little small fragment got shot out as a projectile when the blank was discharged, and that is what was lodged into his stomach. Yeah,
it's awful. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah,
well, it's awful, but it's not like I feel like, well, now the movie can't come out because of this thing happened, because it was his life's work, and
and that's what ultimately it comes down to me, is like for instance, I'll go to most recently Tom Cruise, right? Tom Cruise knows that there is an inherent danger in him choosing to do all these stunts on his own. He knows that there is an industry built for people to do these things so that he doesn't have to do them. So he knows that there's an inherent life or death risk in it. But he wants to do it so much so because he wants this performance. He wants this shot. He wants this completed so that we as an audience can be entertained. Now, if he was to die doing that and the studio put that movie out, and this is kind of how I feel about The Crow, I feel like I wouldn't feel guilty or exploitative, and it may be my own bias or me trying to my own rationale, but I wouldn't feel, because I would feel like this is what he wants. I feel like when he's getting ready to do this stunt, guys, if I die, but this shit looks awesome, put it in the movie. I feel like that's what he would want, like, because that's his whole purpose for putting himself in that situation.
What if it's something like Jackass, where they're doing like something just for the sake of? Because to me, like, the reason we watch movies and we watch, like, because we want to experience danger, and we want to experience danger in a safe way. But do we want to experience danger in a way that endangers the person making the art? Do we want to consume art in a way like Penn and Teller have this thing where they do magic tricks, and these magic tricks, they do the bullet catch. And every week, they don't do the bullet catch anymore. But for many, many years, it was their finale. And part of the magic is that they're simulating this danger, but they would never do a trick where they are actually creating danger, because they don't want the kind of people to come to their show who are showing up to see an accident happen. You know what I mean? Because it's
well, look at David Blaine, where he does that thing where he puts that steel shot glass in his mouth, and he has this rifle set up like 100 feet away from him, and he pulls the trick. He basically shoots himself in the mouth. Like it's a trick shot, like a sharpshooting shot, and he has a high speed, a super stupid high frame rate camera filming it. So he's trying to hit a very small target, and he's holding this shot glass in his mouth. One attempt in that most recently went wrong, and like the fragment of the cup, the force of the bullet was so hard that it pushed that cup into the back of his throat and cracked like the back of his skull or some stupid shit like that. But he would perform this trick multiple times. He has 2 specials where he does it in each special. One, he has someone else pull the trigger. The other one, like, he manually does it himself somehow. But in that way,
I think that David Blaine has a completely different philosophy, because he wants his viewers, because he does the kinds of things where I'm going to go into a box, like where it's stamina tricks, where it's just like, I'm going to go into a box and I'm not going to eat. Like, so he wants his people, he wants to attract people who want to see him fail. Where, like, the reason we go to the movies is we want to experience danger in a safe way, and we want our performers to experience danger like in a safe way. When I wouldn't want Tom Cruise to do something where it's just like, I have a 50-50 shot of making it, and either way it's going in the film. I don't want to see that.
But that's what he does, though. Like when he's hanging on that skyscraper in Dubai, or
even that, I mean, they take every precaution to make sure that he's safe in those situations.
What if somebody wrote a film? Like, we're going so off track. But what if somebody wrote a film where there's a suicide at the end of the film, and the actor says, "Well, at the end of the film, I'll just do it, and that'll be the end of the film, and it'll be my last film, and I'll be dead. Like, would you watch that film?
No, because I don't even know. That would be the studio who would and people involved in who would allow this person to kill themselves. That's questionable. That's a.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where is that line? You know, we want to see people do dangerous stuff, but do we want to see people literally hurt themselves? No, thank you.
No. I mean, but the unfortunate thing is that accidents do happen on the set.
Right, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like with the safety precautions that people have on a film set, they try to take every measure to make sure that the stunts that they perform, there are safety measures there so that they don't get hurt.
Right.
But I mean, because we've seen stunt performers and stuntmen who have been killed on set. But yeah, I mean,
I'm just wondering about the morality of putting the image of somebody actually getting injured in a film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. That's definitely some moral ground that's kind of
not related to our Fistful. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My number, what are we on? Two?
Two.
My number 2, I'm so stoked because neither of you are going to have this on your list because it is a Norwegian vampire film called Vidar the Vampire.
Dude, that's my number 2. It's
you
not.
are such a liar.
Sorry.
You're a liar. Because I watched this screener of this film as a review of for After Movie Diner, and the title of my article is Vidar the Vampire Blasphemes Its Way into Your Heart. And this is one where I'm just like, I could really get in trouble with my mom for this particular review. But the film is, like I was talking about, Neil Gaiman, Convalescence of Ideas. It's about this guy, Vidar. He's always done in his life what he thought was right. He never followed his own aspirations. He spent his entire life taking care of his mother because his mother was ill and she was never and because of that, he never got to, leave town, take his own sexual pursuits, he never really got to live his life. Okay. And so he feels like, I've always been so good. And, what is in it for me? So he's a faithful guy. So he goes and he prays to Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ comes to him and is like, well, if you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you can have eternal life. And so he's like, hey, okay. Turns out, Jesus Christ, Convalescence of Ideas, undead, okay. drinks blood. He's a vampire. So Jesus, through one way or the other, it's a really weird Norwegian film, Eat of My Flesh. Think of it however you want. Oh. But he turns Vidar into a vampire, and then they go get prostitutes and stuff. Oh. Yeah, it's a really, really weird film. There were parts where where it's just like, really? Can I even watch this? Yeah. But still, super sweet story. Oh. I found it lovely. It's by Thomas, written and directed by Thomas Askeberg, and I think that it comes from a really sweet place. But there are times where I think it gets really, really, really gross. But if you want to read my review, don't tell my mom. But it's on aftermoviediner.com. Really weird film. Oh, don't tell my mom. Aftermoviediner.com.
All right. My number 2, I'm going to go with Batman v Superman. I'm going to go with the final shot in Batman versus Superman. Where you don't actually see the resurrection, but it is an indication and a foreshadowing of the resurrection. Okay. Yeah, it's no secret. I am one of the 6 people on this planet that love Batman versus Superman. Superman is my favorite superhero, and I love the ending of that film, the final act of that film, the act of Superman's sacrifice for Lois and for this world, him claiming this place as his home and feeling that he is, willing to give his life for his home and the people of his home. And it's the way that Zack Snyder shoots that ending and the memorial and people mourning him and that funeral and, Batman's realization of, he felt that he failed him in life, but he won't fail him in death. So, Superman winning Batman's heart and mind and how how that affected Bruce Wayne, I found really touching. And then that final shot, while, you know, as sad as I was that, you know, Superman was dead, and it's that thing I was saying with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, you know that there's a third movie. You know, there's Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. You know Spock's alive. He's coming back. There's subsequent films after the third one that feature the character. But still, no less, it doesn't make that ending any less powerful in part 2. So the same thing with BVS. Knowing that there's going to be a Justice League, knowing that Superman is not going to stay dead, it still was moving to me, and I still felt that his absence. But that final shot of the dirt rising from his casket, signaling his pending resurrection, I don't know, I found very uplifting as a way to leave the theater for me. And unfortunately, like you mentioned in your pick, Justice League, it was not executed to standard, in my opinion. I would have liked it, especially hearing Zack Snyder's plan for his Justice League in the subsequent film and how he was going to end it and build that character up. I would have loved to have seen that, but we didn't get that. But as it stands, like, I don't even watch Justice League anymore. I just leave. I stop it at Batman v Superman, and I have my own movie in my head after that. But the ending, that last shot, to me is still effective. And so, yeah, that's got to be my number 2, my Fistful of Resurrection. All right, Brian, you're number 1 because we got 3 minutes left.
All right. And in honor of the 3 minutes that we got left for our season premiere rewatch, not rewatch, of Game of Thrones, my number 1 is Jon Snow. And from the end of season 5, when, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Game of Thrones, and I'm sorry if you haven't, at least I know you haven't.
I don't care, though.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Jon Snow dies.
No, what?
And he comes back to life in the season premiere of season 6.
Yay!
So, of course, anybody who watches Game of Thrones, we all know about Melisandre, who is the Red Queen, who serves the Lord of Light. She uses king's blood to resurrect people and to give birth to ghost babies or smoke babies. Smoke babies. So she's in Castle Black, and so there's a what would you call it, a mutiny? Is that
Yeah, that's right. We would go
because I know that
what happened.
I know that's what happened to Mormont when they were at Castor's place. That was a mutiny. So I guess you could say that for this as well. And it was a bit of a shock. Now, when this actually aired, I wasn't watching the show at that time, so I didn't have the long wait. When everybody was talking about, oh, is Jon Snow coming back? You know, and everybody's like, oh, no, don't worry, he's coming back. And so I got to see it, you know, when I did my binge. So it didn't affect me as much.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it was, because I didn't have that year-long wait.
That shit was gut-wrenching. Like, what the fuck?
But, yeah, so Jon Snow does come back. He is resurrected by Melisandre. And like we talked about narrative-wise with the character of Jon Snow, when that happened, when he does get killed by his own men at Castle Black, you could kind of, I guess the writing was on the wall that he would come back, because you just felt like his story wasn't over because of, I think in the previous episode we just finished with Hardhome, when they went to try to recruit the rest of the wildlings to go up against the Night King and the army of the dead, and we knew that was going to have to come to a head, and then for him to just die after that, it just didn't make sense. So yeah, I mean, Jon Snow, great character. His arc from the beginning of this from season 1 to where we are now is probably one of the most tremendous character arcs, hero's journey that I think we've seen, and hopefully that journey continues. We'll find out soon enough. See us in another 6 weeks. We'll let you know. But yeah, that's my number 1 is Jon Snow.
Yes.
All right, Wife Dork, your number 1.
I was bemoaning before we started recording that I blew my favorite resurrection wad last week on Fistful of Hellboy, because I mentioned that Buffy Summers is my all-time pop culture resurrection. So my number 1 pick is in honor of Brad Gullickson.
Yeah,
who's not
look
here
at you.
today. And so my number 1 is Jack Goodman resurrecting as a ghost / hallucination in An American Werewolf in London.
I was thinking about that. Yep.
Yeah, he is absolutely disgusting, amazing Rick Baker makeup, and like the best resurrections. He is back to save lives, and he's telling his friend David, like, you know, you gotta kill yourself because if you don't, worse things are gonna happen. Yeah, he's a real savior.
Oh, look at that, Brad. See, you better bring her something back cool from Chattanooga, Father.
He knows he's got to bring gifts.
Okay.
Yeah.
You better bring me something back. I had Spock. I had Search for Spock on there, please.
And both of those were my homeworks that you gave me, so I'll take a keychain.
Oh, yay! We're all getting presents.
All right. My number one is a regular on my fistfuls. But when you hear the pick, you understand rightfully so. Of course,
Mad Max.
it has to be. Oh, geez, I wish. But this one is, oddly enough, more pertinent to this list. It has to be Paul Verhoeven's Alex Murphy, aka RoboCop. Verhoeven himself, and at the time, like initially, of course, when I was 10 or however old I was when this movie came out in '87. I wasn't seeing any type of biblical connections to the film. It wouldn't be until maybe 5 or so years ago, maybe 10 years ago, not too long ago, actually, that I read an article about the film, a retrospective article in which Verhoeven talks about the Christ analogy in the film, in the character, as far as his death and his rebirth, and also the movie. It's I want to say it's symmetry and how the beginning and the end, like if you cut the movie half down the middle and you put them side by side from, play the beginning next to the end, like they match. Oh. They match in the same way as far as thematically and like what happens and stuff like that, which I never, that movie is so freaking layered for such a gory, action heavy 80s science fiction film. But yeah, it's Alex Murphy. He new cop on the job in Old Detroit, new partner, first day on the job, the worst day on the job ever for anyone, I think, in that he is brutally slain by Clarence Bodiger and his hardcore gang. His hand is shot off, his head is shot off, his arm is shot off, and but he's given new life thanks to Bob Morton and the OCP as they have him be a product of the OCP RoboCop program, and he's given new life to come back and serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law in Old Detroit. A great action film, a great film, period, not just action, but a great film. And yeah, that's got to be my number one. I don't want to drag it out too much because I'm trying to go so we can watch Game of Thrones season 1.
It's 8:03, you guys.
I know, we're 2 minutes over. So yeah, hit us up on social media at @ModCast and let us know what your fistful of resurrections are. You can follow Brian at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. That lovely young lady over there is at Sidewalk Siren and at Bake Dork on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd.
That needs a resurrection. I have not been talking about it.
Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untappd. The Indie Dork is at WB Das on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd. And I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That is going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you haven't seen some of the recent releases that are out, go ahead and use this open weekend as an opportunity to do that, because you do understand that the next week we have Endgame. Oh, yes. So,
and then that'll be all we have time to do is watch Endgame again
over and over
and
over and over. Right. So get everything else out of the way while you can. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And until next time.
I'm playing us out on air guitar.
Oh, no.
Leave that cat alone.
He is improving.
Down.